I am Erin Patton, metaphysical master in a millennial age, and it is my life's purpose to guide you and organizations along an enlightened path. So I invite you to sit comfortably and tune in as I welcome you to the Meta Business Millennial, where we get the real conversations you won't get in the boardroom so that we understand this is exactly the path we need to be on in order to grow, evolve, and thrive. Greetings, I am Erin Patton, also known as Master L, and welcome to the Meta Business Millennial Podcast. I am here today with Hanna Noel, and I'm super really just humbled and honored to be able to speak with her about business and bringing magic into your business. Like rarely do we hear those two words together, magic and business. And, this is exactly what this cast is about, is bringing more of our magic, bringing more of our metaphysical aspects, more of our spirituality, our divinity into business, our everyday lives. And so we're really going to dig very deeply into what that means for Hanna and for the listeners, for the watchers, for the viewers. And so without further ado, I would like Hanna to just briefly introduce herself, and then we're going to dig deep into some questions about magic and business.
Well, thank you, Erin, for having me on. Oh my gosh, it is an honor, and I'm so excited to be here as well. I think this whole idea of how we bring metaphysics and business together is something that is fairly new, I would say, in a lot of ways.
Yes.
And yeah, I think there's so much magic. I want part of my tagline is monetize your magic, and it's just like, yeah, it's amazing to be able to bring it together. So I am Hanna Noel. I'm a business alignment leader, aka a business coach, but I like to kind of narrow it down a little bit so people have a better understanding of what I do. I
Mm-hmm.
really just lead people, especially women. I work with women right now, lead women back home to their magic, back to who they truly are at their core, to create a business that's sustainable and profitable. So really help them get into alignment, because that's at the end of the day, like if you're not truly in alignment, your business is going to be much harder to sustain. It's going to be much harder to market, if you're not you know, actually lit up by what you do. And yeah, it very much so fell in my lap. I did not, when I first started in the coaching world a couple years ago, I did not intend to be a business coach as quickly as I was, but I just found myself like, I can't stop talking about business. I love business. I'm obsessed with business.
Yeah.
And over the last year, I've brought so many spirituality, so many metaphysical aspects to my personal business, but also how I coach. So, yeah, this is just like a beautiful partnership here.
I love it. I love it so much. And we definitely have to talk about the alignment piece because I feel like that's the part that's missing in everything, the harmonization of life, the harmonization of things, and the alignment of things. But before we do that, I want to understand more about you because for so many of our listeners and viewers, people are going through their own transitions and may feel like, okay, I'm too normal to go into like the spiritual woo woo space, or I'm too traditional, or I'm so conservative. Like what does that look like for you? Like what did that look like for you? Like where are you from? Like where did you go to school? What were you doing before you got into this? Was really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So I was raised in a Christian household. And I would say, we didn't like go to church every single week, but it was like very much so a part of my upbringing, as far as that like sort of religious side of me. And, I grew up in Arizona in the middle of the desert, which if you've ever been to the desert, you know kind of how miserable that is. But
Beautiful.
it has its own beautiful ways. I'm very much so a beach girl. I've, back into the spirituality a little bit. I've looked at my cartography like lines, and I'm very much so meant for water, for the ocean, for the
Oh,
beach. So,
nice.
so being in the middle of the desert, I never felt At peace at home. Like I always wanted to get out of Arizona. So eventually it became possible for me to move to Southern California. That's where I live now. I live like a 10-minute drive, 5-minute drive to the beach. I can see the beach. We're kind of on a hill, so I can kind of see the ocean from everywhere in my city. And it wasn't intentional getting into business or into uh spirituality and metaphysics. It was not something I actively sought out. It was very much so I joined a manifestation course to like
Mm,
learn how to manifest.
okay.
And I mean, I'm assuming maybe at some point you've touched on this, but we're always manifesting. Like
Yes.
that's not something that you choose to do at any certain point. Um, yeah, so I joined this manifestation course, and what really like started it for me was learning that manifestation is in the Bible. Like there are Bible verses that support exactly what manifestation does. So that was my
Yes.
first moment of like, okay, so this the spirituality is not so different from Christianity
Mm,
in many, many ways. It's
mm,
there's so many similarities. And I had always kind of felt, I guess, awkward or just a little uncomfortable at church. I'm a single mom. I have an 11-year-old. I've never been married. So, like, there was a ton of stigma around me at the church being a young single mom. And it never felt right totally to me.
mm.
So,
Okay.
getting into this place of exploring more spirituality, I was like, "Oh, this feels right." Like, now I consider myself I very much so have a connection and a relationship with God and with Jesus and not Christianity. I don't consider
Mm,
myself a Christian anymore because there's too too many stigmas, too much judgment that comes along with that, and
mm,
I'm very open. And it just happened. Like I started with a breath work session, and that brought up
mm.
so many good things. Um, then I got into tapping, and then I started learning, my human design really deeply, and then
Yes.
that went over into astrology, and I was like, oh my gosh, there are so many things here. Like I've never felt more seen. I've never felt more affirmed in who I am and what I do. And yeah, man, it was just it happened quickly too. I think that was kind of like a crazy thing
Mhm.
to me. It
Mhm.
happened within maybe 2 or 3 months. I had like this shift. And now
Mm.
it's just been this like spiritual awakening journey, just learning more about all of it.
That's
So, yeah.
beautiful. And did you have traditional schooling? Like, did you do the whole, like, college thing, working in
So, yes and no.
Okay.
Um, I did end up going to college once my daughter was in kindergarten, so it was 5 years. I got pregnant with her at the very end of high school. So when she was in kindergarten and I was 23, I went back to college. I got 3 associate's degrees in business,
Wow.
marketing and social media and business management, and then I actually started to get my bachelor's, and I realized I had someone ask me, um so what are you going to do? And at this point I had started my business already. So someone asked me, so are you just going to like go find a good job once you get your bachelor's? Like what are you going to do once you're done with school? And I realized in that moment that what I was going to do is what I was already doing. So I
Yes.
was like, I'm wasting, I was so stressed by school. I'm wasting so much energy, so much time, so much money to get a piece of paper that I already have 3 of. Like, I
Mm.
already had, like, 130 credits at that point, which is more than a bachelor's degree, but I didn't have the right credits for the bachelor's degree. So it was like it was a whole thing for me where I just realized, this is not serving me. This is not helping me. This is only stressing me out,
Mm.
and I want no part of that. So I dropped out with only like a semester and a half left, but I just knew at the end of the day, it wasn't going to actually move me forward in any way.
I love to hear that you made a decision based on what you needed to do. And I think so often, and then this is something like a recurring theme that I'm hearing a lot of from your story, talking about you having your daughter at a young age, you choosing to, be aligned with Christianity, but on your own terms, and same with your educational path. And so, as you started to move more into your coaching, how did that spiritual aspect start to get integrated into the work that you did?
Yeah, absolutely. So my coaching is very much so just based on my life experiences. So the things
Mm-hmm.
that I've gone through is what I help other people go through.
Yes.
And I'm a firm believer in that you only have to be one or two steps ahead of someone to teach them something. You don't have to. I actually coached someone the other day who, on paper, is ahead of me in a lot of ways. But coaching to me is a partnership where
Mhm,
you bring out the best in each other, and
mhm.
it's just especially me as a projector in human design, I
Yes.
see the bigger picture. I can see people so clearly that they can't see. So I very much so use human design mostly, I would say, because it's so simple and it's really easy for people to digest. And I'm not confident with astrology. I don't know what all the planets mean, and it's too confusing to me. But human design for me is very straightforward, and I started with human design maybe 2 years ago or so, and I learned that I was a projector, which immediately was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not lazy. I just have such limited energy." And that was
Mm,
so affirming, and I was like, "Wow, so it's okay that I can only work 3 hours a day because I get more done in 3 hours than most people get in a day."
mm,
So, I'm like, "This is good for me. This makes me feel confident." And now I use human design with the energy type, so people, can have that same confirmation if they're the kind of person that needs a lot of rest and they find out they're a projector or reflector. It's like, oh yeah, you've been designed to be able to do it that way. And then
mm.
there are certain people, like manifesting generators, are usually
That's
just
me.
like, is it? So
Yeah.
are you the kind of person that's kind of all over the place? Like you start something, you do this, and you can go, 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 and then
Go,
you
go,
try
go, go,
something
go,
else.
go.
Yeah. And
Irons
some
all over the
people,
place in every fire.
exactly. Exactly. And a lot of people, so many manifesting generators that I come across, they think that something's wrong with them because they can't focus on one thing. And it's like, no, that's how you're designed. You are literally designed to respond to something. That's the generator part of you. And then to inform someone that you're gonna do it and then go start it. And then it's someone else's job to finish it. That's
Mm,
literally how manifesting generators are designed.
I
So
love
there's
that.
so much confirmation that comes with the type, with the profile. I love teaching on the human design authority, how we make decisions, because
Mm,
that is like so I have a splenic authority, which is like a subtle, a quiet nudge, and it's just a feeling that I have, and it makes no sense, and it's like I say all the time, I have no idea why, but this is just what I'm feeling is what I need to do.
yeah.
And for so long I felt like I had to justify my thoughts or my decisions. And when I found out I was a splenic projector, I realized, oh no, I've been designed to do things that make no sense, and that's perfectly fine. So,
Mm,
in learning all of that about all these different aspects, I have been able to empower my clients in the same way. Like, with emotional authorities, you have to wait a day or two or maybe a week to make a decision on something. And it
yes.
doesn't mean you're indecisive, it just means you have to ride the emotional wave. So, in the same way, I give my clients that same, empowerment and encouragement to do things based on how they've been designed. So, yeah, I would definitely say that's one of the biggest pieces, human design, for me in my coaching, and it's based off of astrology and the chakra system. So,
Yeah.
like, I do a ton of chakra clearing too when I can, feel a pain somewhere in my body, or if I notice I'm having triggering thoughts about something, like I go do a chakra clearing. I use Reiki, like all of these things. Just every few months, though, it was like something else popped up that was just like another toolbox or another tool that I put in my toolbox. And I'm able to guide people through all of it now. And again, it's just based on the things that I've learned and I've gone through. It's all very much an embodiment, and that's important to me, to actually have the wisdom and embodiment of what I'm teaching so that, I just then I it's just authentic to me and that's how I want to do things.
I mean, and that feels real because when you have the embodiment, then it really just pours from you. And it's not something like you have to check a book or, you know what I'm saying, or go back to
Yeah.
references for it. It comes out of you just like you're directly connected to source. So that's really beautiful. And when you're
Yeah.
talking about sort of how you brought more of this human design, this Reiki, these very metaphysical principles into your coaching, how did that start to shift your business, if at all? Or was that kind of just like a natural progression? I really want to understand more about how your business was impacted by these tools you started to integrate in your practice.
Yeah, yeah. It's been incredible to see how these tools have allowed me to really be true to who I am and
Hmm.
really be authentic and really become a magnet because I'm not, so conditioned with all the other things that I thought I should do or thought I should be. I'm truly who I am destined to be. And people are just attracted to me. I have people asking me all the time, like how to work with me, or asking me questions about things, or what do you have coming up, and can I do this with you, like, just coming to me because I am so true to who I am now. And it's just been really neat, especially with human design because it's new and my community is very new to it as well. Being able to teach people things about themselves. And even just like in DMs, like I'll have someone send me a screenshot of their chart and I can read it. So I just give them a summary of like, what type they are and a couple little things, and they are always like, "Oh my gosh, that's exactly who I am."
Hmm.
And it's so cool to kind of to have that insight just based on a chart. But yeah, it's definitely, and Reiki has been huge for me because I literally rebranded. I mean, they talk about collapsing time, and I say they is just like, Tony Robbins, all these people in the personal development world that are like,
Yeah.
the king and queens that you think of when it comes to personal development. Um, they talk about collapsing time, and I experienced that for the first time maybe a month or so ago. Actually, it was recent, but I was in this Reiki session, and all of a sudden, I felt the need. Usually, I'm like close my eyes, like really chill, and I felt the need to sit up and just start typing. So I literally, I'm
Mm.
getting chills again talking about it because it was insane. It was so cool. But I just like wrote out the whole vision for my brand. And I wrote
Yes.
out the colors and I got the words for like program names and brand names. And then for like a week after that session, I can't even I can't even talk as fast as my brain is going. um, I have so many programs in my notes section on my phone that eventually will come out. I'm not going to
Yeah.
launch all of them at the same time because I
Right.
think I have 4 or 5 programs, but like, it just flowed out of me. Like, there was no forcing this creativity. It was like there was this
Yes.
clarity that came to me, and I'm completely rebranding as far as, like, my actual colors and my voice, and, it was just like it was such an experience.
I love it. I love it because that's exactly what meta business should feel like. And the reason why, I'm not sure how much of my full story you know, but meta business was inspired by my own trauma in corporate America. And I used to call
Mhm.
myself like a corporate dropout because I really found myself like a round peg in a square hole. Like I just didn't fit anywhere, whether it was a competitive environment or it was too white or it was too whatever. It was just always something wrong and with me and in the environment, and I just never felt like I fit. And so okay, became an entrepreneur. I still struggled as an entrepreneur. Well, what do you know? Like I'm the problem, And so it was really in my healing journey that I started to see all that was good, bad, and ugly with me and how that showed up in my business, how much hard I worked, how many hours I worked, the perfectionism of it. And when
Oh,
we start to really heal those aspects of ourselves, then it flows. So what you're speaking of, bringing this fluidity to your business and your brand and all these things is exactly what I'm sure what you inspire for your colleagues and your clients, people you work with. And let's just talk more about what that feels like or how you get to that place, because I know that there's so many of our listeners, so many of our viewers here who are struggling to just check emails, just to get through the emails.
Mhm.
Like, I know what that is. And the anxiety of responding and the passive aggressive, you know what I'm saying? Everything about the work life can be anxiety inducing. So how do we get to that space of flow that you speak of?
Oh, yeah, such a good question. And it starts with that healing that you're talking about. We have so many limiting beliefs and so many deeply conditioned beliefs that
Yes.
we've taken on when we were children, up until the point that we're 7. Our brains, our subconscious is just a sponge absorbing everything that's happening, and we make it about ourselves because we don't know any different. So,
Right.
like for me, I saw my parents fight and I thought it was my fault. And I took that with me my entire life up until literally like 2 years ago, because I just didn't know. Subconsciously I was holding on to these things. So the first step I always say is acknowledging the fact that those beliefs are there. And you have to do some digging, you have to reflect on your life a little bit and the things that have happened. And I always talk about body scans and tuning into your body, and it will tell you so much about when you feel something like maybe some tightness in your chest, like you can know that there's some self-worth or some self-love or love in general issue there. So maybe that means that at some point you felt like you were unlovable. And so now that's a limiting belief that you're holding on to. And so identifying those, going through that work, doing that healing. And then at that point, you can take those beliefs and find the truth about them, which is that you are lovable or, whatever it is that you're struggling with. And at that point, what I like to do is taking those big emotional events, the things that we, place some negative beliefs, some meaning on, using those events as a catalyst for what we do in our work. So I I don't spend a lot of time regretting the past or sulking in the past, but we definitely use it to find patterns, to find clues of maybe how we got the beliefs that we have. And once we can switch those beliefs, and honestly, it's an ongoing thing. We're always identifying new beliefs. We're always growing, we're always learning, we're always evolving. So it's not a
Yes.
process that's ever done. But once the quicker are able to recognize them, the quicker you're able to start changing them.
Mhm.
And from that point, excuse me, from that point we identify like the common theme in all of it. And so for me, I had multiple things happen in my life that taught me that I wasn't good enough, and that I was alone, and that I had to do things all by myself, that I had to figure it out all on my own. And I realized the opposite of that is that I really needed community. I needed to be surrounded by people. I needed that connection. And so that is my purpose at the end of the day. And so all of this gets into being fully in alignment so that it's not hard to answer emails, because you know that when you answer this email or when you check this DM or when you post this thing, you know that all of it is connected back to your purpose, which for me is building a community, showing women that they are wanted and loved and supported and seen. And all of that comes from my trauma, really.
Mm.
Uh, and yeah, just being able to take those lessons, take those hard things, and empower yourself and empower your
Yes.
clients. If you're a coach, use it as turn your pain into power. Is I actually heard who I think it was Robin Arzon on Peloton that I heard say that for the first time. Turn pain into power, and I was like, "Yeah,"
Yes.
like that's exactly what this is, and it becomes all those hard things in business because they happen. Like you're not going to hit the goal, or someone's going to ask for a refund, or someone's going to send a nasty message, or whatever. Like those things happen because people are human experiencing a human experience, and they're going to have feelings, and it's going to come out sideways, as my life coach says. It's going to come out sideways, their frustration with their parents, and they're going to hurt you, hurt people. Like I know, I'm
Period.
sure we've heard that.
Yes.
So yeah, when those hard things happen, when you are deeply connected to your why, when you are deeply connected to your purpose, when you know your mission, when you have your vision, all of those things, you're able to just switch it. Like you feel it, you feel the pain of someone calling you a mean name, but then you say, you know what? But I know this isn't true because I have this evidence of these people supporting me. I know I'm a good, coach because I had this client have success and I did this thing for myself, and that person's dealing with their own stuff. So I'm going to get back on track with what I'm doing. And it's a process. It takes time to learn and to work through. Like, this was not overnight for me, but that's eventually what happens. And you're able to take that stuff, on the chin and move on.
Yes, absolutely. And if if you feel comfortable, I'd love for you to dig more deeply into one of those kind of stories that you alluded to that really taught you how to implement this, because I feel like people kind of look at where you are today and they're just like they don't know what you've been through. You know what I'm saying? And oftentimes it's in those stories, in these stories of trauma or pain, that create that power for us. So if you don't mind just sharing with us a story or two that really
Yeah.
taught you how to connect back to your spirituality, your metaphysics, your metaphysical tools, and what that looked like for you.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I love sharing these stories because I feel the same way. Like, it's, you see coaches that are, making a ton of money and then they say something like, I walked through, I don't know if we can curse. I didn't
Yeah, of
double check.
course.
Okay, we walk through hell and back, which isn't the worst curse word, obviously. But
Yeah.
anyway, they
Yes.
say something like that. I walked through hell and back this year, and I, died and was reborn. But they don't tell how, and so it just kind of falls flat. So I love sharing these stories. So
Good.
um, I realized what I do with my clients is we identify a childhood, like a young childhood wound, a adolescent teenage wound, and then an adulthood wound. So for me, when I was 8 years old, my biological dad, moved. I was living in Montana with my mom. My parents were divorced, or I was living in Arizona, and my dad moved to Montana. And at the time, I was like, "Oh, okay, that's fine." Like, I didn't think anything of it, but what that caused was an abandonment wound, and it taught me that I wasn't good enough. That was what, 8-year-old me, who just is trying to make sense of the world, that's what I took from that. And that, you know, so that was like, daddy issues, as like cliche as that is, but
It's a real
that's what
thing.
happened. It's a real
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, that's what happened. And so then as I got into my teen years, I became very dependent on finding a boyfriend, finding a boy who was going to give me that love and attention that I didn't get from my dad.
Mm.
Um, and so that led into my teenage wound, which was I got pregnant at 14 and I placed that baby for adoption. And it's a beautiful story. It's an open adoption. She's, gosh, she's going to be 15 this year. My gosh. So she's turning 15 this year. Like, we're still in touch. It's wonderful. But first of all, the grief that comes with having a baby and giving it to another family, like, that's
Yes.
not a natural human thing. So that
Right.
is hard. But the hardest part, honestly, the wound that came with this one was I had 4 best friends at the time. I was going to a private Christian school, and 3 of my 4 best friends, when I got back home, decided to not be friends with me anymore. And I think it actually came from their parents. One of the Bible teachers at that school, and then her friend, who was one of my friend's moms, they like went on this witch hunt almost toward me, and they like made me the black sheep of the school, and they like secluded me from everybody. My parents literally almost, my mom and stepdad at that point, they almost sued them for slander, actually, because of how bad it was that they were, throwing my name in the mud in this little school of like, I think there was like 200 kids in this high school,
Yeah.
and I was totally secluded, totally alone. Well, that's how I felt at the time. Now I look back and I realized I actually had a lot of people supporting me. And this is part
Yeah.
of the reflection that I'm talking about. I look back
Yes.
and I realized how many people actually were supporting me, but it's
Yes.
so much easier to see the negative because that's what,
Yes.
brings the pain. Um, but yeah, so that led to me feeling very unsupported, feeling just not good enough again. Like that's what it came down to. Like I wasn't a good enough friend. I made a mistake and now I didn't deserve to have meaningful friendships. And literally until 2 years ago, so for 13 years, I struggled with friendships. I only really ever
Mhm.
made one other close friend, and
Yeah.
everybody else I kept at a distance because
Yes.
it was easier and safer that way.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I struggled with that for up until 2 years ago. Um, and then my adult wound was actually, I've had all of my boyfriends cheat on me. So from, my teen years and into my adulthood, that was once again telling me I wasn't good enough. And once again
Mm.
telling me that there was someone better. And once again telling me that there was something wrong with me. And yeah, I mean, if you've ever been cheated on, it's it's very difficult. It's hard
Yes.
to overcome that one for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's the betrayal really, is
Yeah.
that you're trusting and you're entrusting this person with your heart, with your love. You've given so much to this person and to feel like they've betrayed that trust, it's one of the most painful feelings you can feel. It's almost analogous to the abandonment issue that you experienced as a child. So it's thank you so much first of all for sharing that story because sis you
Yeah.
didn't been through it and I know this is going to be so relatable to someone out there who is going through rough times. I too can really relate to that feeling of being ostracized, being othered by other women. And it's interesting because one of our other podcast guests, actually, she's um, uh, works with the meta business world on my team. Amber does human design work, and we also
Mhm.
talked about sisterhood wounds on a podcast
Yes.
before. And so it's really, really a thing that women around the world of all races, of all backgrounds, because for me, I'm just thinking as Black women, but it really is a universal thing for women that we are taught to kind of compete with each other and not support each other. And so it's just makes sense that now the work that you do supports and heals women
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
of the trauma you experienced with having those bonds broken by young women, of course, but
Yeah.
still, but by little, but in your childhood. And so it's like a full circle moment with this story of you kind of sharing like the trauma and now the healing. And and how would you talk more about sort of that sisterhood wound and how that came into healing to now be of service to women today, because that's huge, a huge overcoming.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And just to touch on really quick the black and white, as a black woman and as a white woman,
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's so like these kinds of conversations, just women coming to together in general, it really shows us that we're not alone.
Yes.
And there was so much division in the world and so much racism in the world. I can only
Yes.
imagine how secluded that would make you feel. And so it's one of those things where like of course you wouldn't hope that this would happen to me, you
Mhm.
know, but
Mhm.
I can imagine. I know for me when I see someone else who I wouldn't expect something to happen to realize that it's not just because I was a young teenager, that got pregnant. Like it was these sorts of things happen for so many reasons across the
Mhm.
board. This sisterhood
Mhm.
wound, people doing these things to each other.
Mhm.
So I think just, I think being open and honest and having these conversations and being, relatable and open to who you're talking to, like it's just a beautiful story to see how we can connect on a, very special level. So,
I love
anyway,
that too. Thank you
um
for lifting that up.
yes, yes, of
Mhm.
course.
Mhm.
Yeah, so the sisterhood and how I've turned it really came down to when I did that reflection and I realized I'm getting chills again saying this, which like when I get chills just means I'm like in the zone. um, but that really, when I did that reflection and I realized how many people I actually did have supporting me, The thing was that they were too afraid to say something because they
Mhm.
didn't want to be ostracized as well.
Mhm.
So it was easier to stay in the pack and be a
Mhm.
sheep and I get that, they're teenagers, they're young, but even the moms, because I mean, it was really the moms that led this whole thing, this whole witch hunt against me. So even their parents, there was a couple moms of some of my classmates that supported me, which I forgot about because that wasn't important at the time. And so now
Yeah.
I've been able to see that even when there's so many people that are working against you, there's also so many people that are working for you or
Yes.
working with you, supporting you.
Yes.
And sometimes, oh, I'm getting chills again. Sometimes you have to look for them, they're quieter maybe, or they're hiding because they're scared. So sometimes you have to put that effort in to find them. And that's what I do now. I bring people together. I have a Facebook group of women. It's literally called Empowering New Women Entrepreneurs. So, women who are new to business, like it's a small but mighty little Facebook group where we're able to support each other and connect with one another. And I'm actually starting a membership to have that community and coaching for new women in business. That's like a regular sort of thing instead of just periodically in this Facebook group. Um, and my ultimate dream, my ultimate like goal in my business is to have like a high level mastermind where we like go on a retreat a couple times a year and like
Mm.
really just dive deep and connect and just really open up our hearts to one another, because that's where transformation happens, in my opinion.
Yes.
Anytime
Agreed.
I've connected and been vulnerable and been open, like that's when things shift and you can really, just take it to another level.
Ooh, I love that so much. Yes, so because I recently bought a 12-acre plot of land where I'm going to build essentially a healing ranch. It's called a Commission Ranch, and it'd be
Ooh,
able to host beautiful mastermind ceremonies as the
oh,
ones you would create. So, it's a couple years out.
I love
But
it.
eventually, when you're ready, we'll be able to host that. So I love to hear
Yes.
this.
Oh my gosh, of course. I know. That's my dream, to bring in breath work and sound healing and
Yes.
all the things,
Mhm.
like have a healing center like that where there's this combination again of the spiritual business blend, where it's
Period.
like, yeah, we're gonna talk about our business, we're gonna maybe come up with some strategy even, but we're
Mhm.
really here. We're gonna do some spiritual connection, like we're gonna get into all that, and that is the stuff that totally transforms our business when we focus on that
Yes.
self growth and that
Yes.
healing and that
Yes.
aspect of it. Everything in our business just comes together.
I love that you talked about that because we're going to transition a little bit because this is the Meta Business Podcast. Talk to me a little bit more and talk to our listeners and viewers about how you teach this to folks, because I believe that this is essentially the converting conversation when you're able to really help someone understand, or really hold the space for someone to understand how shifting themselves can shift the business. Because right now,
Mm.
like you said, it's very new, it's very fresh, and people don't necessarily see the correlation when really it's like a cause and effect. Like there's like distinct influence on how we're honoring ourselves and how that reflects in our business. So talk to us about a little bit about how you have that conversation with people.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think for so long the connection between mind and business has been mindset work, where you're like working
Mhm.
like affirmations and the mind part of it, which is
Yes.
great. That's like the typical personal development stuff in a lot of ways. But I bring in a lot of the body work and your intuition and bringing in your soul into your business, and into your body. And then that goes into your business. And I teach a lot on intuition and really learning how to connect to your intuition. And everybody's intuition is different. Like some people feel something, some people hear something, But it goes back to, we start with the human design authority because that's how we make decisions. And so we start there. And with human design, I always say, like, if it doesn't resonate, that's okay. Like, don't pick up the piece that, don't try to force something to work just because that's what human design says.
Mhm.
You have to take what does make sense to you and what does work for you. So that's where we start. We start with the intuition, dropping into our bodies, doing a body scan to learn what different sensations in our body mean. Like
Yes.
I mentioned, the heart. And I also, one of my other signs is if I feel like a bowling ball in my stomach for some reason, then I know that whatever I'm considering or doing, I know that's not a good thing. I know that's
Yeah.
not that it's not a good thing, but it's not right for me.
Right.
And it's that connecting to my body,
Mm.
because our bodies don't lie to us. Our mind will lie all day long because we have our ego that's trying to keep us safe. So we talk about this too. You have your
Mhm.
ego and your higher self. Your ego is a little 6-year-old, 7-year-old kid who just needs love and is scared and doesn't like something new. I mean, imagine yourself when you're a little kid. Like, you wouldn't want to walk into a house by yourself where you didn't know anyone, right? So it makes sense that if you're doing something new in business or trying a new strategy or meeting someone new for the first time, you're going to be scared. So your
Yes.
ego is trying to hold you back. So that's our mind playing, I don't wanna say playing tricks because they mean well. They're not trying to hold us back, they're trying to keep us safe, but it's not helping us. And so
Mhm.
when you learn to connect to your body and to your intuition and you can pay attention to that, then you can know, is this thing that I'm doing going, is it for me? Is it right or not? And I
Yes.
always, even on my podcast, my first episode, we go over what a body scan is and how to use it, and then the human design authorities. And that's where I start with basically everything.
Mm.
Because once you understand those things, you can come back to it, because when you know those things, you can really establish your brand values and your personal values, and you can establish what your definition of success is. So then down the line, when you're stressed and business is hard, you can come back to your values and your definition of success. Am I in alignment with these things? And if you
Mhm.
are, then your business is going to go on the right path. I feel like I kind of went off track there. Did I answer your question, or am I missing something?
Oh, no, that was perfect. So I believe that that's exactly right. We must use our body. We must feel into our emotions. And I talk about this a lot too because I'm a Tai Chi master. I do a lot of Tai Chi work and I bring that energy into my sessions in workshops and coaching. And the first thing we learn in Tai Chi is, how is my stomach doing? How is my liver doing? How are my intestines feeling? How's my kidney? Like, we're literally talking to our organs and understanding the relationship. It's actually called body and brain training. So the fact that you're talking to your clients about, feeling the signals that are coming from their body in their decision making process is literally out of this world. Like, no one's doing that. The first thing people are going to do is like, let me see the spreadsheets, let me see the
Yes.
numbers, let me see the data, let the data speak for itself. Yet no one's allowing themselves to speak for themselves. And that's fundamentally what I believe is missing from business is a little bit of this intuitive approach, if you will, and sort of blending the intuition with the figures and facts, because of course you don't want to throw away the numbers, you want to utilize those as well. Yet how can we bring more of ourselves into that decision making process? So that resonates very deeply.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. And
Hmm.
I completely agree. And I love that there's like an actual term behind what it is that I do, because I didn't even
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. And just to get a little bit more into the metaphysical practice, what are some things that you do in getting more into your specific approach with your clients that bring more of this awareness to their body and bring more of this intuitive approach? So I would love to understand more about your modalities in your sessions with your clients.
Yes, of course. Yeah. So we do a body scan, we do a meditation regularly to, quiet our mind. Our minds never totally quiet down, but just to still them a
Hmm.
little
Hmm.
bit, so that we can have that clarity moving forward in our session. And I've actually just recently switched to Voxer only. I don't even do calls
Mm,
anymore, which was an intuitive decision, which has been
mm,
brilliant for me, I must say.
okay.
Um,
And tell me about that. What is it about Voxer specifically that resonates with you and your work?
yeah, so I am a projector and my energy ebbs and flows. And I found myself, there would be multiple times where I would schedule a call at a time that was usually good for me. But, for whatever reason, I would just kind of be off. Maybe someone's energy as a projector, I'm very open, so I take on people's energy. Um,
Mm,
and something would be off. And if I couldn't clear it for some reason, I would go into this call not being my best, not being as good as I could, maybe having a distraction. And so I realized that my Voxer sessions, which actually just started as DM, it was actually just like Instagram voice memos. um, but I realized that those I was
mm,
able to reply when I was actually clear, when I was grounded, when I was steady and strong, so that the insights and the questions, my coaching is basically questions. I just ask people,
mm,
so what is have you considered this, or what does this look like, or what does this feel like? We do it. We always, do a lot of body work. Like, okay, when you're having that thought of why is nobody signing up for my program, where do you feel that in your body? And then they have an answer. And then, okay, is there something that has been similar in the past when you felt that same feeling, a different situation in your past? And then we address that. But Voxer very much so. I'm able to like bring my clearest, my best, my most grounded self. So my clients are getting the best of me, and they actually get more access to me because I do weekly packages. So they actually get more access to me instead of just the 1 hour a week call.
mm.
And it's just more flexible for both of us. There's no rescheduling, there's no technology difficulties. Like, it's just when my energy is good, when they have the time to respond, we can do that in our own time, and it works really, really
Mm.
well.
That's very interesting. So you find yourself really doing remote work on your clients as opposed to sort of the in-person traditional kind of like the one-on-one coaching sessions that you'll find in therapy
Yeah,
sessions or traditional coaching and things like that. That's really beautiful.
yeah.
And yeah, and I guess one last question is really how has this metaphysical journey really changed and shifted your life?
Mhm,
Because especially your business. And I like to ask that because working with your clients and working even in work in my work as well, it's one thing to say, okay, I feel better, or I feel like it's more about the feeling,
mhm.
but really, can you speak even to numbers? Can you speak to number of clients or reach or things that really how has this work really had an influence on your business and maybe some the impact on some of your clients' business as well?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and I love sharing my client wins because
Yeah.
I love celebrating my clients so much. But I'll start with me. This whole spiritual journey, like I said at the beginning, I have become just like magnetic now, where I have people who like the program that I launched right after I kind of started this whole like journey. I want to say it was like, I think I had like 4 times the amount of people join that program than the one
Mm,
before. Excuse me. And so that was just like an insane growth that I was like, hold on, like I didn't do anything different. Like my marketing wasn't any different. Like I didn't change how I was showing up or what I was sharing, but there was just my energy was just different. And people could
mm,
just like people can just tell when you're being inauthentic or when you're not being true. And so it repels them, or when you're desperate, it repels them. And I was able to
yes.
step into my power and step into true alignment and true authenticity. And I just had people, sign up much more than the other time. And then also my growth on Instagram. I was like regularly losing followers on Instagram. And I think every month,
Hmm.
So this is something else about me. I actually don't track numbers or statistics too much because if I do, then I get into my head too much. So I don't know exact numbers, but I will say it was somewhere around, I think I was regularly getting like a couple hundred new followers a month or something like that. I know it was growth. I remember that much. And I'm actually throwing it all away and starting a brand new Instagram account that I thought, I'd be happy if I had like 50 new followers join this new account with me out of the almost
Yeah.
3,000 that I have on my old account. And I already have 100 people there in like a week or something. So I was like, oh,
Oh,
okay,
that's
this is
beautiful.
cool. And my clients, oh my gosh, my clients, after one of our sessions, this was just last week, someone was struggling to sell her group program. And the next day, she had someone pay in full for it after like a week of no signups or something. So that was like,
Mm,
that was super fun for her to share that with me. And then another client who randomly one day was like, you know what? It feels right to launch my coaching program. She had been like scared and holding back and we had worked through some of these beliefs and she just randomly like we had no strategy. There was no launch strategy. She just like took it upon herself. She said this is what feels good in my body, the work that we had done. So she just shared it on Instagram was like, "Okay, I'm doing one-on-one coaching and group coaching." And she had two one-on-one clients book with her within 3 days out of literally like nowhere. She
that's
just
beautiful.
said, "I'm doing it," and she did it. Her podcast is a top 10% podcast in 3 months. My own podcast that I have well, I have 2 podcasts, one with a co-host with a friend of mine. That podcast got to top 5% within 9 months. Um, my other
Nice.
podcast hasn't officially launched yet, so I don't have numbers on that one yet, but I am excited to see what happens. Um, Gosh, what else? I've had other clients that my whole goal is to help women take their passions, the things that they naturally love, are naturally good at it, and
Mhm,
make a business out of it.
mhm.
And so
Yes,
one of the coolest things for me is when someone gets paid for doing something that they are going to do anyway no matter what, and now someone is paying
yep,
them for it. And the ahas and the
yes,
excitement, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I just made $100 and I was gonna do this anyway, but somebody paid me for it." And I'm like, "Isn't it so cool?" Like, imagine doing
yes,
that on a bigger scale or charging like, you can
yes,
have a full-time income doing what you're obsessed with, and, like, that
yes.
is a huge win too. And that's something else slightly related. I think wins are often people assume that a win needs to be like a, $10,000 month, your first month in business, or,
Right.
$1 million year. Like a lot of people think that those are the only wins that are worthy of celebration. But I really
Mm,
think, whatever success is to you, whatever you want to celebrate. Like I won a free mug
yes.
the other day and I celebrated the heck out of that because that was freaking so exciting to get a free mug. And I think, celebrating all the little moments in life and finding the wins is, just another way to really keep you moving forward. So,
And you really attribute that to metaphysics and,
yeah.
your ability to be aligned and in alignment with your truth and your authenticity. And that to me is what's so beautiful because as you shared before, your client is doing something that they would already be doing for free. And now that they're doing it with that passion, with that purpose and that intent, and now they're able to reap benefits and reap the reward from that, investment in themselves.
Yeah.
And last but not least, I just wanted to dig a little bit more deeper into your gifts. So you talk about you do Reiki, you talked about your human design. Can you speak more to how you cultivated that part of yourself and that aspect of yourself? Were you trained formally or were you self-taught? I'd love to understand more about your gifts.
Yes, yes. So to clarify,
Mhm.
I actually don't do Reiki on others. And I'm
Mhm.
not officially trained in Reiki either. Just to clear that miscommunication. I
Mhm.
work with a Reiki master who I do Reiki with, who she like does it on me. And I've kind of taken some of the how Reiki works and done it for myself, but I don't know if it's
Okay.
technically considered official Reiki. But I teach my clients to do that too, focusing on the different chakras and just sending love there and clearing them and working through the beliefs that come up in those different chakras. So that's definitely part of it. I do breath work. I have no official training though in any of these things. So I don't do anything that's too deep because I'm not officially trained. But I do share what I have done for myself. I share that with my clients
Mhm.
and we go there, and then if they want to go further into, a deeper breathwork session or an in-person breathwork session, then they are fully capable of finding the person to do that with. Human design, again, not an official training, but I have done a ton of research, and in one of the courses
Mhm.
that I was in, she did probably almost like a mini training, honestly, like probably half of what a certification would be. So I have all of that knowledge under my belt. And that's actually something that I really preach and help my clients with too is I think there's a time and a place for being certified. And I think there are certain things, like especially breath work, if you're going to bring
Mhm.
up traumas, like if you're going to go that deep, like then you should be certified and it should be in person and there should be people there. Um, so even like I wouldn't even do a deep breathwork session online because I think those things should be in person anyway. Um, so
Yes.
yeah, but anyway, so a lot of what I teach is based on the fact that our experience, the things that we have done for ourselves, the ways that we've worked through things for ourselves, we can use those and guide people in the same way to do that for themselves too. So, I really
Mhm.
believe that we don't have to be certified or have official training in some of these things. Again, if you're going deeper, then yes. But on a more
Mhm.
surface level, just acknowledging things and just starting that process, I think it's, beautiful to be able to do that on your own.
Yeah, we're certainly in the age of knowing. And so learning and self teaching is almost paramount in everything that we do. So I 100% agree. I definitely believe that there's a time and place for certification. I also believe that there's a time and place for being self taught. So that's really beautiful that you have a bit of both
Yeah.
in your experience and in your toolkit. Because I often share that when I started my metaphysical journey, I had no teachers. And the universe, in many ways, made it that way because I had been so heavily reliant. I had been schooled my whole life. Like,
Mhm.
schooled and people pleasing was kind of like my MO. And so to be able to teach myself and having to hear my own voice and trust my own instincts, and to your point about the intuition, that's what started to cultivate that for me because I did not trust myself. And in many ways am still kind of working on that growing of trust in self
Yeah.
and trust in God, and so in source and universe. And so I believe that that self teaching is really a beautiful period in your life, I'm sure, and any of our listeners and viewers, if you're finding yourself maybe not having the resources or the funds or access to teachers or mentors, a good YouTube search or coming to my website or going to Hannah's website and learning from some of the things that we do. I mean, these are all opportunities for you to grow yourself. And that's really what this path is about. So I love that you encourage that for yourself
Yeah.
and for your clients.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so we have a couple more minutes. I want to just kind of give you the floor if I left something out in terms of like the work that you do or digging a little bit deeper into the alignment with the business. Like maybe you can even just talk about like what the magic is. Like what does that mean to you?
Yes, yes, of course. I
Mhm.
know we covered so much today, and I guess some of my final thoughts are just knowing that you have everything that you need within you. And you don't have to
Yes.
go find, like, I'm not the coach for you because I'm going to tell you how to do something. You already have the answers in you. And this is for everyone.
Yes.
Like, we have the answers within us. We just need to learn how to look within. And we need to learn how to trust ourselves and guide ourselves and lead ourselves. And that's definitely
Yes.
something that I see in the coaching world a lot is coaches like saying, I'm the person for this, or And there's a time and place for it. Like, we all have our
Mhm.
expertise for sure, but everybody can figure things out on their own. Like, you have the
Mhm.
wherewithal, you have the answers. You don't need to hire a coach
Yes.
that's going to tell you the proper strategy. You just need to learn a
Mhm.
body scan and you need to learn how intuition works and how those things work. And when you can do that, then you can ask yourself the right questions and you can give yourself the answers. Now I will
Yes.
say working with a coach is so valuable because they're going to help you, move things along quicker potentially because they have, an outsider's view when even I have a coach and I've always had a coach, but when we're so emotionally and deeply connected to what we're doing, which is super important to stay in alignment. So you want to have that. But when we are that close, it's harder to have a bird's eye view. It's harder to have a just a bigger view of what it is that we're doing. So having a coach is
Yeah.
very helpful in that way. But at the end of the day, you have everything you need. If you're a brand new business owner, if you're wanting to completely change your business, if you're just wanting to grow your business, like, you have the answers within you. And just taking that time to just focus and quiet down and take a deep breath. Like, I love, doing mini breath work on myself where you just are mindful of your breath and you
Yes.
slow down and you breathe deep into your belly and deep into your chest, and then you exhale for twice as long as you inhale, and you just do that a few times and you can just get grounded really easily. I also another
Mhm.
grounding technique is to just imagine your body having roots that connect down into the earth. So, like, if you're laying in bed,
Yes.
just closing your eyes and imagining that roots grow out of you down into the ground. um, that is super helpful for grounding too, and that's bringing you back to
Mm.
yourself.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. And Hannah, I just want to say how grateful I am for you sharing this wisdom on the cast today and also just speaking life into people just probably around the world who are listening about how to bring more of themselves to their business, be more aligned in the business that they do, and stay grounded because that fundamentally is the key. And, for people who want to work with you or want more information from you, how can they best reach you? What's the best way for them to get in touch?
Yes. So Instagram is probably the best. My handle is with Hanna Noel. And you can just DM me there and say that you heard me on the Meta Business Millennial podcast. And yeah, we can connect and see, what works best for you, what you're looking for help with. And if I don't feel like I'm the right person, then I will tell you that. And I'll recommend you to someone who I think would be a better fit. Because sometimes we have
Mm-hmm.
more emotional blocks that we need to work through before we really work with a business coach. And, I can do some of that, but there are people
Hmm.
who are more suited to handle the emotional intelligence. So, um,
Hmm.
yeah.
Perfect. For everyone else, I want to also thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Meta Business Millennial Podcast. I am Erin Patton, and you can find more information about this cast on my website, metabusiness.world. Also on my Instagram, I am Erin Patton. On Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube at I am Erin Patton. Thank you all again so much for joining us today. It was wonderful, wonderful having this conversation with Hannah Noel, and we will join you on the next podcast. I love you so much. Peace. Did you really love this episode of the Meta Business Millennial Podcast? Well, I am honored, and I appreciate you subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with your friends, because your feedback allows us to co-create more enlightened conversations. And if you're interested in growing your soul now, head over to my website, erinpatton.com, to find all the show notes, links, and free resources to get your energy activated today. In the meantime, stay bright, my friends. Much love and light. Peace.